Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to Jamie's 12 Days of Christmas, where for 12 days in the month of December, I will be celebrating 12 creators who have had a pretty significant impact on my beauty journey, helping me go from makeup enthusiast, makeup hoarder, makeup junkie, to now YouTuber slash content creator. We are on day 8, and today we are going to be celebrating the iconic Yachty Beauty. So today, to honor and celebrate Yachty, I thought that I would share with you all 5 indie brands worth trying, as well as some tips and tricks for shopping indie makeup brands. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. Now, if this is your first time watching me, let me quickly introduce myself. Hi, I am Jamila. I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup. I love all things skincare. And I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to get high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. Now, like I said in the intro, I really wanted to celebrate Yachty Beauty, and in this way specifically with talking about indie brands, because she has had probably the biggest impact on my beauty journey when it comes to being introduced to indie makeup. Now, back when I was just getting into makeup, if I couldn't find it at Sephora or Ulta, I wasn't buying it. I really only purchased makeup that I could find at these sort of mainstream stores, which meant that I was like not at all exposed to this entire world of indie makeup and indie brands, because one, they're not in these large retailers, and two, there's no way for you to really see or test or feel the product before like actually purchasing. And let's be real, a lot of creators don't actually focus on indie makeup to that extent. Like, you really only see and they don't really advertise at the level at which brands like Urban Decay or Too Faced or Tarte advertise. So they're not kind of in your face. They're not pushed to you because they have much smaller budgets, because they are indie brands, right? But once I started watching Yachty and I really started watching her content, she used so many indie brands on her channel, and she is what kind of inspired me to start diving into the world of indie makeup and into trying these brands. Now, in addition to sharing my tips for how to shop indie makeup, and in addition to sharing, the 5 brands that I think you should try if you're interested in getting into indie makeup, I do have one request for this video, and this is my only 12 days of Christmas video that's going to come with a request. Now, if you've been watching Yachty for a long time and you've been following her on her YouTube and her social media platform, you know that right now her husband has been hospitalized because of COVID. So my request is that if you are watching this video, that you pause to say a prayer, to send good vibes, to just send good energy her way. Her family is just so beautiful and so strong, and they have been dealing with this for some time now, and I firmly believe in the power of prayer. I know Yachty also believes in the power of prayer. So if you are watching this video and you have it in your heart to just pause and say a prayer for Anthony and for Yachty and their sons, I would just really encourage you and appreciate you for doing so. And also leave some love for them down in the comments as well. Now, let's dive into this video, okay? So, 5 indie brands worth your time. Now, I'm pretty much only focusing on eyeshadow here because I feel like most indie brands tend to stick in the eyeshadow space, and that's pretty much all that I shopped for. Now, some of them do have other products like lip products and even some skin based products, but I pretty much only bought eyeshadow from them. So the first brand that I want to talk about is one that is probably the most recent brand that I tried when it comes to indie makeup, and that is Glam Cosmetics. Now, I pulled out my palettes from the Happy Hour collection. Now, you probably are familiar with Glam as that brand that creates food themed or food packaged makeup. And that is what I knew them as, and I really was not interested in trying them because I don't want an eyeshadow palette that looks like a hamburger. I don't know, it's just not me. But when they released this Happy Hour collection that looks like normal palettes, I had to pick it up and I had to try it. And I don't know why nobody told me that their formula slaps the way it slaps, because quality is top notch. Now, out of the Happy Hour collection, the chocolate Martini palette is my absolute fave. Now, it does look like a basic neutral palette, I'll admit that. But these shades perform so well on the eyes, and there's so much versatility in this palette. Like, you get the regular neutral shades, but then you have a really, really nice duochrome. This orange copper shade here is just stunning. And what I like about the shimmers, particularly from this brand, is that they're extremely pigmented. They definitely are on the creamier side, so it's a little bit softer, but on the eyes, these are fabulous. They last really well. And the mattes, if I had to choose between the shimmers and the mattes hands down. I love the mattes. I love the formula of their mattes. So if you haven't tried the Glam Light formula yet and you were interested in trying a couple of new indie brands, this should definitely be one on your list because it really is a phenomenal formula. Now, the next brand that I want to talk to you guys about is one that I am still dipping my toe into and honestly still kind of forming my opinion on, and that is the that is Odin's Eye Cosmetics. Now, this is a Swedish brand, and I was interested in this brand for a while, so I'd been looking at them for a while, but I never actually picked up anything from the brand until they did their most recent collab, which was the legendary Diversa collab. It's a 3-way collab that they did with 3 creators. This Giant Wolves palette is from their is the collaboration that they did with Annette, and it is so beautiful. So beautiful. Like, the shimmers in here are what steal the show. Like, it does have a multi-chrome. I don't know if you can see the shift from blue. It's so pretty. Like, the shimmers really do steal the show in this palette. I will say that I wasn't in love with the mattes. They definitely were really pigmented and a little bit harder to blend, but it wasn't unusable. Like, you could definitely use the mattes in here, but I like what I saw. So this is definitely a brand that I am interested in trying more of. I actually purchased some more palettes from them during Black Friday, but I don't know where my order is. It said it came into JFK, and I don't know who at JFK picked up my palettes, but they didn't reach here, and it's been almost a month now, so we'll see if I ever get my other palettes. Now, the third brand that I want to talk to you guys about is Nomad Cosmetics. I feel like Nomad has been just kind of making waves and killing the game recently. Now, I do have a full first impressions video on this Haunted Europe palette, which is a beautiful fall palette, and the Nomad Cosmetics formula is one that I have really grown to love and enjoy. I will say it definitely is a creamy shimmer formula, and the mattes are really nice and they blend easily. I do wish that the mattes had more pigment. I don't think that they are as pigmented on the face as they look in the pan sometimes, but you can build them up. It just takes a while and it doesn't get to that level of intensity that I thought it would get to. But overall, I love it. I feel like they put out some really, really unique color stories. I feel like the shades, the shadows perform really well. So I picked up their Haunted Europe palette when it first dropped. And I remember this was the palette that caught my eye first. And I was so unsure about picking it up. This is the America's Parks palette. And I remember talking to Yadi about this specifically. And eventually, I did get it. Like, it's a nice palette. I just feel like the colors in here, I wasn't really sure how to put looks together. So I was really hesitant about picking it up, but yeah, what I like about the Nomad palettes specifically is that a lot of times indie makeup can be really intimidating because their shimmers are so impactful, so in your face. So if you wanted something that was a little bit more toned down, a little bit more work appropriate, you know, something that is just a little bit more subtle, you would typically have to go to like a mainstream brand. But it is nice to see that you could get those more subtle looks from an indie brand, and I think Nomad really does that with the way in which their shimmers and their mattes perform. They really do give you that soft look. I do think you can go a little bit bold with some of their shades and with some of the looks that you can create in it, but overall I don't think you get the in-your-face indie bold eyeshadow that a lot of indie brands are really known for. The fourth brand that I want to talk to you guys about is a brand that I think honestly changed the way in which we think about packaging and getting makeup. Now, if you've been watching a lot of content creators on YouTube, you know that when brands send out PR, like it's usually these really beautiful packages, but that's only available to the people that they send PR to. And I feel like Kaleidos completely changed that by making it possible for normal people to actually purchase PR style packages so that you could get the experience of having like a PR box come and unboxing it. And even if you didn't buy the PR box, I felt like their general packaging was just so beautiful. Now, I do have 3 Kaleidos palettes. This is also an international brand as well. I don't know where they're from. Where they're from. The palettes are made in China, but I don't know where the actual brand is from. But anyways, you see where Nomad is that like more subtle eyeshadow look? Kaleidos is that wham bam in your face pigmented look. My first eyeshadow palette from the brand was the Club Nebula palette. Now, this packaging is stunning. It's extremely textured. It is definitely on the chunky side, which I wish it was a little bit thinner, I'll admit. And then you open it up and you get these really, really unique color stories. I think that they put together some of the most unique color stories. And when it comes to the shimmers, they are that in-your-face, really, really high impact indie shimmers that people talk about. Like, wow. If you want something a little bit more subtle, maybe Nomad, but if you want that shimmer to hit, Kaleidos. And here is the Escape Pod palette. Again, you get that really beautiful packaging that I just think is stunning. And this is such a perfect spring palette. Like, it's so pretty. I can't get over it. It is stunning. And the shimmers in here are just as impactful as the shimmers in the Club Nebula palette. Beautiful. And then my last Kaleidos palette is this 6-pan. I really do like that they have these 6-pan palettes because I think that this is such a really nice way to try the brand and to try the formula because these are a little bit more affordable. I don't know what this one is called, but it is one of my favorites. I think the color story in here is literally me. Like, it's so perfect. What I also like about the Kaleidos brand specifically is that I feel like they're really reasonably priced. Considering the quality of the shadows, the impact of the shimmers, I feel like they're reasonably priced. When you think about other indie brands like Cleona, like Divina, and these other multi-chrome specific indie brands, you're paying like $25, $15, $17, you know, really high prices for just one shadow. And I feel like with Kaleidos, which is why I really, really enjoy their shadows, I feel like the price is so reasonable. I think some of these were like $30-something for these palettes. So they were reasonable both for indie and for mainstream. So I would say give them a try. We're down to the very last, the 5th brand. Now, I will say that all of the brands that I just talked about, even though they are indie brands and they're smaller brands, they do have a pretty large footprint on social media. So they're really well known. I've seen a lot of creators, both indie makeup creators and just like more mainstream / luxury type creators, talk about them. So they definitely get a lot of exposure. This last brand that I'm going to talk to you guys about though is definitely not in that category. It's really, really small, really indie, but they produce some of the best shimmer shadows I've ever tried. And that is Pretties for your face. It is single shadows, so I have them in my magnetic palettes that I picked up from Morphe. And these are some of my Pretties for your face shadows. I literally have 4 palettes with, and it just keeps growing. Now, in addition to this being the smallest indie brand that I'm talking about, it's also, I think, probably the most affordable. All of their shadows, their single shadows, retail for between $5 to $10, and you can always get them on sale. So, and the sale is usually 50% off, so you can get them between $2.50 and $5. And paying $5 for a multi-chrome is literally unheard of. Like, and the quality is amazing. Now, what I really love about the Pretties For Your Face brand is the fact that these are all hand pressed. It's such a really, really unique indie experience in that it's not the big production that you get with the fancy packaging and all that other stuff. It really is just like simple hand pressed shadows that are top quality. Let me swatch a couple for you guys. Now, these are definitely the high impact shadows as well. Like, you're not gonna get subtle with these. Not only are they high impact, but they are also on the more flaky side. So if you don't like textured shadows, you may not like this one very much. But I do feel like these are very unique to my collection. And when I want that more bold in your face look, I definitely reach for these. Like, I don't know if you can see the shift of this shade here. It is a beautiful multi-chrome. And I don't know, I can't bring myself to buy the Cleona and the Davina $25 multi-chromes. So I have just been enjoying these in my collection. I think that they are honestly amazing quality and definitely not breaking the bank. Look at that. So amazing. Now, I do actually have a code with the Pretties For Your Face brand. It's just my name, it's just Jamila, and that does give you 20% off. And the best thing about it is that that code stacks. So if you do purchase during one of her sales, which actually right now she is having a buy one get one free sale on her website on all of the eyeshadows, and this would stack on top of it. So you would basically be getting the shadows for 50% off, and then you can get an additional 20% off if you use my code Jamila. I do have a ton of photos on my Instagram of swatches of these shadows by color family, as well as an entire IGTV video where I did a swatch party of these shadows. So if you wanted to support a more local, really small indie brand, I would definitely recommend that you check out the Pretties For Your Face. Because out of the 5 that I mentioned, both Kaleidos, Odin's Eye, and both Kaleidos and Odin's Eye are international brands, and Nomad, Glam and Pretties For Your Face are US based brands. So give them a try. I'm now covered in glitter on my hands. All right, so we've been through my brand recommendations, and I promised you guys that I would share a couple of sort of tips and tricks for shopping indie makeup, because it really is not like shopping mainstream makeup. Now, it's not too different, but I do think that there are some things that you should take into consideration if you decide to go the route of shopping indie brands. Now, the first thing that I want to say is that it's important to give these indie brands grace. They do not have the same budget, the same staff, or the same operations that some of these more mainstream brands do. So they may not be the most responsive, they may not deliver the quickest, it may not be as smooth of a transaction as it can seem when you're shopping from like Sephora or Ulta. So you should definitely be prepared to give these brands grace. With that though, I want to be very clear that you as the consumer still have rights. Betsy Gotcha, who is a fabulous YouTuber on this channel, actually did a really great video talking about your rights as a consumer, even when you're shopping from indie brands. So what to do, or like what rights you have if your package doesn't get delivered, if you aren't able to get in contact with these brands, or if they stop replying or responding. I will link that video down below because I thought that it was really informative, because lots of times, you know, if your package goes missing, it's like, well, you need to file a claim with blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no. The onus does not fall on you as the consumer. If you are purchasing a product, it is up to the brand to make sure that that product gets into your hands. So while we should definitely give these brands grace, because a lot of smaller indie brands tend to be sort of one woman, one man shows, you still have rights as a consumer, and you should feel comfortable with getting everything that you paid for. We all spend a lot of money on makeup. We all work really hard for our money in the first place. So you shouldn't feel like you have to just sit back and take it because they're a smaller brand. No, if you spend your good money to buy their products, you deserve to get not only just great customer service and treatment, but you deserve to feel respected as a consumer. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2. I would have to say do your research. Again, unlike some of the mainstream brands that are available in like Sephora and Ulta, you can't exactly go into a store and swatch products, and it's not as easy to return as it typically is with these other brands. So I would suggest, do your research, see what products you're looking for. There are a number of YouTubers that review indie makeup, so I would definitely recommend, looking at a number of different videos, getting their perspective before you actually purchase a product, because it's not as easy to return. I found when it comes to indie makeup, and sometimes it's just not worth the hassle, So do your research, figure out what it is, figure out if that is the product that you want to buy. I should also say that some of these brands, because they are international brands, like Odin's Eye, like Kaleidos, if you are using your credit card or, well, yeah, if you're using a card to purchase it, you may get international fees because of the change in currency. So that is also something to be mindful of. Like, you don't want to have surprise charges for like international transactions on your card. So just do your research and be careful with what you're purchasing. Tip number 3. Pay attention to shipping times. Like I said, a lot of these brands are really one woman, one man shows. So sometimes purchases are pre-orders, and you need to decide for yourself if you are willing to wait 3, 4, 6 months before you see your purchase, because a lot of these brands, a lot of indie brands will do pre-orders for products instead of purchasing a set amount of products and then just selling that set amount. And I found that I am just not that person. I need instant gratification, because if you're taking out the money out of my bank today, I want to see my product next week. So because I've just realized that that's not me, I tend to avoid brands that do pre-orders, and I tend to avoid brands that have very, very long shipping times. So using Pretties for your face as an example, right now, if you order from them, I think their shipping time is between 4 to 6 weeks. And that is just because they don't have like the staff that a normal brand would have. And I was fine with that. I'm like, 4 to 6 weeks, I can live with that. But when it becomes 4 to 6 months, that's problematic for me. So just figure out what the shipping times are, figure out if it's a pre-order or whatever the case is, and decide for yourself if you are willing to wait or not on some of these brands, because it can be a bit much. Tip number 4, understand how private labeling works. I feel like I've talked about this before, but if not, I'm just gonna quickly say here. A number of these small indie brands use private labeling, which essentially means that they're all purchasing the exact same formula and just changing the name of the shade or putting it into their palette, their design, or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, you're getting the exact same formula. And I feel like there was a point this year where there were a ton of brands that were releasing these duo/multi-chrome palettes that were very varied in price range, but they were all the exact same formula. And the reason why I say that you should pay attention and be mindful of private labeling is because you can purchase from all of these brands, but you're going to get the same formula. So essentially, you're purchasing the same eyeshadow 3-4 times. So just be careful about that. I do know that there are some creators who will do comparisons of like different indie brands and let you know, oh, well, you don't need this shade because you already have this. And I think that those are really helpful videos, because it really doesn't make sense to have multiples of the same shade, especially if you have a large eyeshadow collection. Chances are you're not gonna empty or pan one of those shades, so you don't need 3 or 4 of the same shade. It might be helpful to do the research to figure out which brand is actually offering it at the best price, because I have definitely seen like crazy differences in prices for the exact same formula, the exact same shade, and it hurts my entire soul. And my last and final tip is pay attention to how these brands respond to complaints or criticism. Like I said in my first tip, I do believe that we do need to give these brands grace, but I also very firmly believe that there is no excuse for being rude, for treating your customers like shit, or for not being inclusive or thoughtful about inclusivity in your products. I think there's no excuse. Big brand, small brand, in between brand, don't care. And I think that sometimes a lot of indie brands will try to use the excuse of, well, we're small, we're just expanding, we can't cater to everyone, blah, 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 which I get it. They are small, they don't have the funding or the capacity to do certain things. But I also think that the way in which you respond to people questioning you about, do you have swatches on different skin tones? Are you able to show what this is going to look like on deeper skin tones or lighter skin tones? I feel like those are valid questions that people are asking. And based on how a brand responds to that criticism or that feedback, you can decide if that's a brand that you want to support. I really think that it's important to pay attention to how these smaller brands receive feedback and how they grow and improve, right? Because they start off as indie brands, they get a lot of exposure from creators, and then they will start to expand, right? So are they receptive to feedback? Are they deleting comments, negative comments from people? Like, I think all of those things matter. So at the end of the day, it's your money. Feel free to put it wherever you're comfortable, but those are just some of my tips and tricks and what I want to flag as like things that you should be mindful of as you are shopping from some of these smaller brands. Like, I feel like when bigger brands get into like scandals, it's like very easy to articulate like, okay, Hourglass, they don't give a shit about people of color, so screw them. But when it's like smaller indie brands, like it's really hard to figure out like whether or not you would be valued or represented in their products. All right, so this might have been a bit of a long video. If it was, I apologize. Like I said, today we are celebrating Yadi. She truly is a queen of indie makeup. So if you are interested in getting into more indie makeup, please go ahead and follow her on YouTube, on Instagram, the whole deal, because she has been one of the most informative people for me on how to be smart about shopping and entering into this indie makeup space. So all love and thanks to her. Like I said, while celebrating Yadi, we are sending our thoughts and prayers to her family and her husband. So feel free to leave a prayer, a comment, a positive message, a positive vibe down below. And just let her know that we love her and we're thinking about her. And that's it for me, guys. We have finished day 8 of my 12 Days of Christmas series. If you are liking this series, if you are liking this video, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you ring the notification bell too, because that will let you know when I upload a new video. Like this video, don't forget to comment. Please share with a friend if you think that they will like the content. And as always, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.